Hi everyone, my name is Jeremy, I'm an alcoholic. Hi. Good morning. Thank you. It's really fun to be back. Hi folks. Hi. I've moved around in sobriety a lot. I used to, when I first got sober, I was living in Vermont, which is not my choice. But I started coming to meetings like this, and I actually came to this meeting. But since then, I've moved from Vermont to New Hampshire, to Massachusetts, to Rhode Island. And I keep coming back. So, but I haven't been in this meeting in a couple of years, so it's really good to be back here and to see a lot of familiar faces. I came to this meeting a lot when I was first coming to, and writing a couple of years sober, so it was fun and helpful. So for that, I thank you. Good to be back. So I get asked to speak on this chapter an awful lot. By happenstance and intentionally. I think it's my favorite story to tell. It has very little to do with me, so that's also good. My experience of how I came to believe is from suffering from the insanity of alcoholism. If you don't know what it means to be insane, by the definition of the big book, is that they're specifically referring to the mental obsession. There's actually no point in the entire textbook where they refer to sanity or being insane or being returned to sanity or being of sound mind that they're not referring to the mental obsession every single time. So that's what it specifically means. I didn't know that. I remember when I first came to AA, I would sit in meetings. Basically, we sit in a circle. We'd read the 12 and 12. And then, we're talking about step 2, half the meeting would say, well, what my higher power looks like. And then they talk about their higher power collage and all this other stuff and how they like religion and hate religion. And then the other half of the room would talk about how insane they were and how crazy they were and all the, messed up things they did when they were drunk. That was my experience when I, went around in a circle when people were talking their opinion on things they had no experience with. And nobody actually worked this out. And I didn't know. All I had to do is, open this chapter and, read it with somebody who knew what they were doing and had that experience prior. And I just had to follow the instructions in there. And it's basically a recipe of how to find that something. I went about it entirely backwards. I didn't open this book. I didn't go through it with anybody. Not that, it's somebody's fault. It's just the facts of the matter. So my journey was an arduous one. But really all I have to do is just keep an open mind and read this and just follow the instructions. And that's what I tell guys that I sponsor today, because most people know me as the weird higher power story guy or the creepy guy that used to be violently anti-religious. I'll get into it. Those types of the non-believers or the disbelievers or I got a problem with the God thing, they all come to me. And when I tell them it's totally fine. I don't care. I mean, we can talk about it if you want. You can describe it in length. It's fine with me. But what I promise them is that if they keep an open mind, if they're willing to, just to try it out, and if they follow the instruction in this book, I promise them that they will find something that works for them. And it really works. And I promise them. And if they are willing, do keep an open mind and follow the instructions, it works every time. If they don't, not so much. I'm kind of a low bottom drunk. I also would describe myself as a chronic relapser. I first came into AA as a pretty young man. I knew it was a 12-step program, didn't really know anything else about it. I was in detox, and I went to my first AA meeting, and I saw they had the window shade in the common room of detox, and I started going through the steps, and it's higher power, God, turn your will in your life, prayer, meditate. I was like, nope. I'm all set. Good for you people, but this guy is just never going to happen. It's just not going to happen. I had never really had any faith, and the older and the drunker I got, the more resigned I became. Then I got really into angry music and lifestyles, and I just could not swallow that pill, and I truthfully didn't believe in it. It just didn't make any sense. Religion just looked like a lame excuse for weak people to hold on to something to give their life's meaning, so that when you die, if you're a good little girl and boy, you'll go up to heaven. And that's just all it really looked like. Didn't make any sense to me. So I was like, not going to happen. And I got a detox and went to some meetings, and I didn't really get too involved. I know I made it 90 days because I got that coin. I know I didn't make it 6 months because I didn't get that coin. Somewhere in between, I knew I was definitely, because I was mostly in that detox because of heroin and different opiates. This is before heroin was cool. Not that it is, but apparently it's all the rage. And my drinking was, very disturbing, but I just figured I was definitely too young to be an alcoholic, and, it wasn't so bad, and, as long as I don't stick a needle in my arm, I'll be fine. And after a while, I just left. I didn't really want anything to do with you God people anyway. It seemed pretty lame. And I stayed out for about 6 years, and, basically it was pitiful, incomprehensible demoralization. And it got, really bad. I was around-the-clock daily drinker, and, did opiates and other stuff, took on my life was destroyed. I went to jail, I was institutionalized, I died a couple times, the whole 9 yards, no place to go, car was off the road, kicked out. Anyway, so my parents had retired to Vermont, so that's where I went, and I didn't really, feel excited about getting back into recovery or going into these meetings or any of that stuff, but I really wanted it because I had no choice. God bless you. I was all out of options. I had tried to quit many times. I probably detoxed on my own couch dozens of times, and nothing seemed to work. I tried some other stuff, psychology, pharmacology, both legal and illegal, and it just didn't take. And I knew at that time it was so bad, I absolutely knew I had to get sober. And even if my life was really lame and boring, and I had to hang out with you people the rest of life, so be it. As long as I just needed to get sober. And I did not know I'd already lost the power of choice and drink. So I got out of detox. I moved in with my parents. I got a home group and a sponsor and making coffee, and I did 90 and 90, and all went well for a time. And honestly, that place in Vermont, it's pretty remote. It's a bit of a big book dead zone. Not a whole lot of real solution out of the book, but they did read the 12 and 12. I had exposure steps. I went to a big book meeting, which they just read it cover to cover, and kudos for them to actually reading all of it, and not just the stories. But they read the whole thing. It was interesting. So it wasn't really a lot of that. It was definitely a spiritual place, a lot of higher power talk, a bunch of loving people. My home group, everyone was, I would consider elderly, just to be honest. So I put up these walls and barriers of these people are different. I had a jet black mohawk, and I was from New York. I was like, don't touch me. And it's Farmer Joe with the nose hairs combed into his mustache, and I'm not kidding. That guy exists. His name's not Joe though, and he's not a farmer. But I was just like, God. And all these people are talking about is a higher power, and pray in the morning, and ask for help, and say thank you at night if he kept you sober. And I was like, no. I remember this Don, that's his real name, he's a friend of mine. He was sober a really long time, and he'd be like, hey kid, you hitting your knees? And I'd be like, no, I am not. And I liked it well enough, but after, I was actually 6 months to the day, I had relapsed. And that one, I could not figure out why. Because I had decided that I was never going to drink again when I moved to Vermont. And I just assumed, even though it was not fun, you just went to AA. And if you were really serious about stopping drinking, you would just stop. And that perplexed me. So I didn't know what was wrong. So I just redoubled my efforts. So I showed up early, and I stayed late, and I went to even more. I'm going to meetings every day. I go to more meetings, and lo and behold, I drink again and again. I remember one time I went to 3 meetings in one day. That's tough to do in rural Vermont with no car. And despite that, I showed up early, I stayed late, I raised my hand, I talked to my sponsor, I called random people, I want to drink. And despite all that and going to 3 meetings, I drank that night, and I just couldn't figure out why. And this happened just over and over and over again. A meeting-making fool. And people kept telling me, meeting makers make it. Meetings are very important, but my experience as a meeting maker make it is I made it to an awful lot of meetings, and I kept drinking. And they said, hey kid, that was my name, Kid, because 30 years younger than everybody else. And they're like, just put the plug in the jug and you'll be all right. And my experience is, like, if I put the plug in the jug, eventually I take the plug out, I drink it, and then I go get another jug. Because I can't not. That's what it means to be powerless. And I didn't get it. And a lot of well-intended, kind, and friendly people tried to help me. And they were giving me recommendations that I did not follow. But there was still some disconnect of what it means to be truly powerless from, some of the suggestions. And they're talking about this higher power thing, and I'm just not getting down. I just can't do it. And they're talking about this higher power thing. So first of all, let's get some things straight. I'm not stupid. I know you mean God. It's like this little watered down term. So you're not going to fool me. And they're talking about this higher power thing. Oh, it could be anything you want. I was like, I'm pretty sure I would like it to be nothing. Thank you. And they're saying these things. I still think they're silly. Like, oh, your higher power, it could be a light bulb. I was like, that is so dumb. Like, do you hear yourself? Light bulb? Light bulbs burn out. They break. Is that your God? Right? Or it could be a doorknob. It just didn't make any sense to me. And but they are trying to help me. And I kept drinking. And so, what AA says alcoholism is, and it's described in the first couple of paragraphs we read tonight, it's a threefold illness. It's physical, it's mental, and it's spiritual. So I found that I could not quit entirely, and I found that when drinking, I had little control of the amounts I took. And if that was my case, then I was suffering from an illness which only a spiritual experience can conquer. Now, you don't need to believe that, but that's what AA believes alcoholism is. And that is the solution that we offer. That's the problem as we see it, and the solution for it is what AA has to offer. And I was coming to AA, and I was not getting down with what AA was all about. Again, we didn't go through the book, but, that was that. And so I remember it after one particularly heinous relapse, I was in a low point, and I had this idea. It was a brief idea, just like it talks about in the book in another chapter. It was fleeting and soon lost. So it came, and as quickly as it came, it went. But I'd like to tell you about this idea, because I know it helps lots of people. So I'm a big nerd, geeky. I like to get down with that stuff. I didn't play football in high school. I played Dungeons and Dragons. And so, so I had this idea that I could do this thing for a higher power. Has anyone ever seen the movie Star Wars? Yeah? Okay, great. So even if you haven't, just play along. But I remember I thought I could make this thing called the Force my higher power. And what I didn't know then and what I know now is it's funny because in the movie Star Wars, it says the Force is what gives a Jedi Knight his power, right? Power. It says in this chapter, lack of power. That was my dilemma. I had to find a power by which I could live, and it had to be a power greater than myself. Okay, well, that makes sense. In the movie Star Wars, it says a Jedi can feel the Force flowing through him, right? Third step promise. We felt new power flow in. Okay, that makes sense. It says in Star Wars that the Force is what binds the galaxy together, right? Well, several times in the book, it calls a higher power the spirit of the universe. Mm-hmm. Universe, galaxy, okay, I can get down. That makes sense. Kind of meshes there. Later in one of the other movies, there's this guy Luke who's talking to this other guy Yoda, and that's brand sponsor. And what he's trying to do, he's trying to figure out if the good side of the Force, or the dark side of the Force is more powerful than the good. He's like going over it. And what Yoda instructs him, he tells him that, no. The dark side is not more powerful than the light. It's just quicker and more seductive. Talks about that in here too. We tried to find an easier and softer way other than working the 12 steps, but we could not. Makes total sense. I didn't know that. I didn't go through this book, and I hadn't come to those conclusions. I also didn't know that George Lucas actually studied a lot of Eastern religions and philosophies when coming up with this thing called the Force. I mean, if you think about it, Yoda, Buddha, that is the same dude. Totally makes sense. And I also didn't know that William James, he's talked about twice in the big book. He was a big influence on the writing of the members in the book. He wrote a pretty famous book called Varieties of Religious Experience. And in the back of that book, he summed up all of these religious and convergent experiences into one godlike phrase. And he simply called it the more. More, like capital M-O-R-E, the more. So if you don't know, William James was known as the father of American psychology. He published many books. They literally named a college after him. If that guy can call it the more, then this guy can call it the Force. But again, I didn't, this is all hindsight. I didn't make any of those conclusions. I didn't figure any of that out. So as soon as I had this, this brief idea, I immediately pushed it out of my mind. And I remember thinking, my internal dialogue was like, oh, don't tell anyone that, Jeremy. That is so stupid. Like, that is dumb. And if you do that, it means they broke you. It means you drank the Kool-Aid. And it means you're just going to be another one of those hypocritical religious nut jobs. So just get in line, sheep. So I did nothing. And then I drank again. And then I drank again and again and again. The last time I got drunk, I was drunk for about 2 weeks straight. In the middle of that, I picked up a bundle of dope because that seemed like it would solve my problems. It actually ended very badly. Obviously, I was dope sick for 5 days, and I had to drink continuously. So when I finally emerged from that 2-week binge, I came to, was locked in my parents' bathroom. I was puking blood, and stomach bile was coming out of my nose, and it was seeping out of my tear ducts. And I was greatly disturbed. Not because this was happening to me, because this had happened to me several times before. And in that moment, two things clicked. It became very clear. The first of which was I was almost certain, this time I was certainly going to die. And more disturbing than that was number two, that I had no idea how to stay sober. I just couldn't do it. And the only thing that I could think to do at that moment was to call Howard. See, Howard was my grand sponsor at the time. He's elderly, retired. This was like 2:30 in the afternoon on a Friday. He could meet me at the Friday night meeting several hours early because I just had no idea what to do. And I'd come back from yet another relapse. So I met Howard. He quickly pulled me into, a side room. And so we could, so I'm sure he was embarrassed for me. I was covered in bodily filth. I probably hadn't showered or shaved in 2 weeks. And I had a cut-off t-shirt on, and it was, February in Vermont. And so we sat down at this little tiny kid's table, and it was just super embarrassing. And I just spilled my guts, and I spilled the beans, and I told Howard everything that was going on and everything that I'd been doing. And I told him, I can't stop. I absolutely cannot stop. And Howard made the point-blank declaration that God had done for him what he could not do for himself. And Howard had been sober longer than I'd been alive. And my ideas about miracles were drastically revised right there. Never mind, all my old ideas or what is it going to look like or, what is my satanic tattoo artist going to think of me? Like, see, these are the things going through my mind. There's had a miracle directly across the table. And he shouted, "Great tidings." And so Howard asked me to do the only thing that I was never willing to do. And he said, "Pray with me." So I said, okay. And he took my hands and we got on our knees. And I don't know if Howard said anything at all. And I don't remember if I spoke it or if I thought it. But I know I said, please help me. I just can't do this. And I walked out of the room a free man. I've never had the obsession, compulsion to drink from that moment to this. Quite important was to discover that spiritual principles would solve all of my problems. I've since been brought into a way of life infinitely more satisfying and I hope more useful than my last. I've been risen from the scrap heap to a level of life better than the best I've ever known. I didn't see any lights, but the room got bright. A huge weight was lifted from my shoulders. Exactly like it describes in the book. Circumstances made me willing. Alcohol beat me into a state of reasonableness. Remember that part? Circumstances made me willing. I humbly offered myself to my Maker, and then I knew. And I mean it like I knew. And the next morning I woke up and I wanted more of that. And I had no idea how to get it. And I didn't even really want to admit it, because who wants to go back to the meeting and be like, okay, you guys were right. Not this egomaniac. But I would talk about in meetings, I was the violently anti-religious. I don't use the term lightly. Most of it was just pretty penny, just pathetic stuff, and arguing with Jehovah's Witnesses and other just dumb stuff. Never saying God bless you if somebody sneezed. Really just lame. There's some serious stuff I had to make amends for, but most of it was just lame. But I would listen to black metal outside of church congregations on Sunday morning. I went to concerts where Bibles were ripped up and burned. And I used to so I have about a third of my body's tattooed, and I would tell people that they were put there by Satanists in an AA meeting, just to make people uncomfortable. And of course it didn't. They're like, oh, that's great, just keep coming, kid. Right? Right? So anything to stick it to them. But the funny thing is, and they were right, just keep coming. And, thank God I didn't die, because I could have. Yeah. I did, and they brought me back. But seriously, the real goodbye. But just like it talks about it, it's textbook. God does not make too hard terms to those who seek him. The moment I just opened that door and said, all right, I can't do it, please help me, there the help was. Yeah. Now, it doesn't always happen that quickly. That's why the spiritual appendix, appendix 2, the spiritual experience, that's why that was written. Because it sounds like that's what's required. That's what I needed, but that's not what's required. Basically, it will happen, quickly or slowly, no matter what, if we, follow the directions and keep coming. And it says it in Bill's story, God comes to most men gradually. His impact on me was sudden and profound. I had that overwhelming change in outlook pretty much in an instant. And so, it was remarkable. And the funny thing is, first of all, I didn't want to believe in God because I had to know. I had to know exactly what God was, what it wasn't. I needed overwhelming proof before I could believe. I really needed God to come down so we could meet as equals. And I would see that this thing was real, and then I could, okay, yes, I see it. I physically can touch it. Yes, I get it. It's real. Then I will believe. And it's just so absurd. And I assume that experience, if it ever happened, I'd be on, the highest mountaintop wearing some white lofty robe and all this other stuff. God revealed himself to me in the children's playroom next to the dingy AA hall in some crummy church, holding hands with, an 85-year-old gay man, which I didn't think that would happen, next to the Barbie Dream House and the Easy Bake Oven. That was my experience. It was pretty humbling, so God knew what he was doing. And I was just making such a big deal of it, and obviously I was defiant and obstinate, but all I had to do is be willing. And there's this proposition, this is this question that we ask ourselves, and this is the essence of step 2. Do I now believe, or am I willing to believe that there was a power greater? All you have to do is be willing. Is that yes? Okay, moving on. Step 2, done. Like when I read that I tell them, done. Step 2. Well, obviously, if I'm reading this with the sponsee, we read the rest of the chapter, we go in it, we talk about it, they hear about my experience. But that's it. That is all that I need to do. That's the essence of step 2. So, I mean, I had made such a big deal. I wouldn't say the Lord's Prayer, because it's a religious prayer, you're not going to make me say that. And it's just funny. I remember this happened to me. It says, do not let any prejudice you have against spiritual terms deter you from honestly asking yourself what they mean to you. So after that experience I had, and I realized I had this opinion of the Lord's Prayer, then I remember I read this, and immediately I said, well, let me think. What does that mean to me? And I could make use of spiritual and religious terms, prayers, the whole nine, and I make use of a lot of them today. I mean, it's not exactly step 2, but it's where it's led me. And I get down with a lot of stuff that probably would have disgusted me back then. I don't know if I would have liked me, because, I mean, that was, my sobriety is February 5th, so that was just over 11 years ago. And it just, it blows my mind. And, life is pretty good, but I do want to say, well, that experience, it sounds really cool, right? It's a neat story. Bill had a story like it, and everybody always wanted to hear Bill's story. Never want to hear about those lame traditions. But that experience would not have kept me sober. It says so in the book, and that's, what I believe. I still needed a spiritual awakening as the result of these 12 steps. So it was really great that, the doors got blown open and I was able to search out a guide, which I found one, and he's here today, to take me through the rest of the work so I could really clean house. So I could really be free of all the things that were blocking me from that higher power. So that thus I could stay sober. And as I would stay sober, life would, progressively get better. My life is, it's pretty good today. And I do love to brag about this one little thing. I have this cute little boy. His name is Howard. All right? Doesn't that just melt your heart? He's super cute, too. I'll show you pictures. So, and this amazing life has been given and awarded to me as a result of, continuing to do the work. And, life has definitely progressively got better. It's been really colorful this last 3 years, not just because of COVID. I have 2 kids now, under 2, and we moved, and, it's just all I could go on and on. But the work and the people here in this program is really what has kept me sane and somewhat spiritually fit. So I can't speak highly enough of doing this work. It has, obviously done wonders in my life. So if anyone's considering it, I highly recommend it. And wherever you're at in your, in your journey, if you're reading, keep reading. If you're writing, keep writing. If you're trudging, keep trudging. And that's all I got. God bless. Remember, the force will be with you always.